Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You're listening to Roundtable. I'm Niu Honglin, joined by Fei Fei and Yushun. Imagine this. You've just nailed an interview, and the offer is almost in your inbox. And then HR asks to call your former boss, your colleagues, maybe even your graduate advisor. Suddenly, it doesn't feel like you are just being hired. It feels like you are being investigated. So, where's the line between a reasonable background check and an invasion of privacy? And if you say no, are you automatically out of the running? The reason we're talking about this is that it's the workers' stay period, and also we've just went through the hiring peak season of the year. During springtime, we see most of the job changing, and also with a lot of graduates coming into the market, facing HR for the very first time. We'd like to discuss what are some do's and don'ts in the hiring process, and especially when you're facing the situation that's making you a little bit uncomfortable, yet do not know what to do or how to react. What are something that you can actually do, and what are some information that we would deem helpful, and especially the situation here in China versus the situation globally? Because personally, I know some countries take these kind of investigation very, very carefully. We find it a fun topic to discuss.
Yeah, and especially considering, the spring recruitment for a lot of young graduates out there, I think they're probably asking this question: when is it okay to say no, and what would happen if I really say no, or saying that I'm really not comfortable, but when being asked questions like, can be a little personal on some level. But I think right now we do also encounter a lot of the pre-employment checks, meaning that apart from resume, which most of us would make it very glossy on some level, maybe, exaggerate a certain point or your experience on some projects here and there to make it more presentable on some level.
Yeah.
Presentable, good word.
Exactly. This topic has been quite popular online, no matter it's in the circle of newly graduate students or newly graduates, or the people who are trying to get a new job and hopping from this to there. And then people are having this kind of questions, asking them the contacts of their maybe friends or even previous or former supervisors. And then because they are not just checking or confirming their resumes, they are also checking about their job performance and even reach out to their colleagues and academic advisors. And also maybe even dig in whether a candidate is bound by a non-compete agreement or request proof of resignation before moving forward with an offer. So for actually employers, these steps are kind of necessary, to be honest. This is a step for them to clear or make sure that it is the lowest risk of hiring this person that they have no idea who they are. Because hiring someone who's still under contract elsewhere or bringing talent who cannot legally work on certain projects is a kind of risk that they need to take into consideration.
How about for candidates? Is it something that we see very common during the hiring process, job seeking process?
I think it's more common these days, especially, in recent years when we are giving out our CVs to a lot of companies. Well, from both the employee's point of view and the employer's point of view, we are strangers. So seeing your CV, seeing your resume is the first step that from the employer to getting to know you. And of course, they need to verify all of the experiences that you listed on that CV. And how to verify, they can be calling you former colleagues, your former boss. But sometimes, it's very difficult to draw the line here, because sometimes the questions can be a little intrusive, can be a little personal on some level. Even, for example, if they ask you, why do you decide to change your job? Why do you leave your last job?
That sounds like a very regular question.
That's a very regular question, but what if the reason that you leave your last job is not a very pleasant experience? For example, you're getting into a
Dispute with your
former employer, and you can't really tell the future employer, I'm just getting into this kind of dispute with that company, so that's why I'm leaving that. Then, that can be a little intrusive. Or, I personally have encountered some really weird questions in interviews. For example, asking about my personal life, your relationship status, your family status. And that's completely unnecessary to the job position that I'm applying. So that's when we need to draw the line. For example, from a legal point of view, of course, employers has the right to verify the information you provided. But there is a line in the labor law, I believe, that for information that is not related to the job position, it is okay for you to say no. But that comes with consequences.
Oh, so it means that the employers has the right to actually verify the information or some resume, but there is a certain extent that you need to be aware of the boundary of the information that you're asking, no matter it's the friend or the former boss of these candidates.
Well, okay, so the situation here in China is that legally, the employer can check the information directly related to the labor contract, meaning that you can verify personal information, education background, you can verify the past working experience with your former boss or something, asking whether or not the experience you claimed that you had with this company is true. And also, qualification of related professions. You're providing certain kind of certificate, and if that certificate is photoshopped or AI made, I would not know, but I can cross-check that information. And last but not least would be the criminal record. So these are the information that they are legally allowed to check. But we all know in practice, different types of weird situations might happen. People can be lying about certain details that they deem not that important, but ended up quite important. We even have some examples of not doing good enough background checking and ended up in certain kind of legal disputes, do we?
Yeah, precisely. Like, I have an example here from the city of Shenzhen, and that's why, for employers' point of view, it is essential for them to do this kind of background check. For example, a tech company in Shenzhen, they hired a very key position employee in their R&D segment. They didn't really check on his non-compete status. But after joining that new company, that new employee were found he had worked on projects that's closely overlapped with those of his former employer. So the previous company sued both the new employee and the tech firm, saying that the new employee surnamed Hu had violated a non-compete agreement, and the tech company in Shenzhen was at fault of not checking on this kind of information, and the court ruled that the company had failed to fulfill its duty of due diligence, either knowingly or through negligence, by hiring this employee from a competing firm while he was still bound by a non-compete clause. So as a result, this tech company in Shenzhen was held jointly liable for a 400,000 yuan or close to $60,000 penalty for breaching that agreement for non-compete status, saying that these two companies are probably working in the same, technology, and they are in the position of competing with each other, so they should not hire employee from a competitor knowing some of the key information in research and development that can lead into, unfair competition between these two. So from an employer's point of view, it is very, very important to check on this kind of information. Don't take it for granted. And I'm not defending them, saying it's okay to ask all sorts of questions, but that because, the checking comes from a good place.
Yeah, probably from their perspectives, it is kind of beneficial for both sides, actually. It is guaranteeing the rights of the company and also the employee, because in some cases, it's also about the health condition of these employee, and you need to actually verify what is the situation over there, because a case in Nantong in East China's Jiangsu province, a security company hired a worker in his 60s without a written contract or a health check, and then one morning something happened. He suffered sudden cardiac death while on duty, and the court found that given his age, the company should have conducted a health examination to assess whether he was fit for the role, and then by failing to carry out this basic health screening, the company was deemed negligent and was ordered to pay compensation for this kind of incident.
And this problem or this issue is not only existing here in China in different places. We see around the world there are different types of legal details when it comes to doing the background checking with your potential candidates. In the United States, what they do is one thing they really focus on is the due procedure, meaning that each and every step they need to get consent from the candidate, and also they also rely on third-party companies to do the background checking the most. And in Europe and also the United Kingdom, what they usually do is, again, also the education background, previous working experience, and also the certificate, whether or not the certificate is real. And also, sometimes their criminal record checking is a little bit different from China. That is, the criminal record checking is limited to only job-related areas. Well, I think that's similar.
In China as well.
Yeah, so if you have certain kind of illegal or maybe just a small violation of certain regulations, it's not included in the background checking. And in China, the common way and the common questions that are allowed to be checked by employers. And this is not going to be the end of the discussion of this topic, because with artificial intelligence in place, with technology in place, with social media in place, we're always going to try to find the fine line between, yes, these information are open, the other ones probably are not. We are also facing the fact that maybe with big data and with different types of algorithm in place being the first step of the checkout, whether or not algorithm would really lead to fairness, or maybe it will lead to a certain kind of discrimination that we are not aware of just yet. And also with social media in place, with more and more information out there, we're also looking at the fine line, how much information should be used, quote unquote, against the candidate or should be used in the hiring process. But we can always find a place to debate, and we would love to know what do you think about these kind of background checking, no matter if you are standing at the employee's position or you are looking at it from the employer's point of view. And that brings us to the end of today's roundtable. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topics. Leave us a comment wherever you listen to your podcast, or send us an email to roundtablepodcast@qq.com. Deep dives and nuanced views. We are clearing the table for now, but may the ideas stay with you. I'm Niu Honglin with Fei Fei and Yushun. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.